Alright folks, so if you guys have been following this channel for a while, I did mention last November if I was an American citizen, I would be casting my vote for Donald Trump. And the number one reason for that is because I believe that the Trump administration could bring world peace. Well, so far I would say I've been 100% wrong. I mean, I think everybody saw what happened during that Oval Office meeting between Trump, J.D. Vance, and Zelensky. Turned out to be a total disaster. The war between Russia and Ukraine is not going to end anytime soon. And look at what's happening in the Middle East. I'm 100% against Trump's decision to bomb 3 Iranian nuclear sites. I mean, that is another step closer to bring us to World War III. And let me make something crystal clear. Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. The fact that, the Trump administration, the DOJ, the people like Kash Patel, the president himself, Pam Bondi, Caroline Leavitt, the fact that at this point they're still calling this a conspiracy. Anybody that questions this is a conspiracy theorist. I think it's 100% outrageous. I've lost all faith for the administration. As a matter of fact, I would say I've lost all faith in any administration. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this Jeffrey Epstein case because I think there's been so much coverage already. But I will say this. I think at this point it's very obvious, the Jeffrey Epstein files, it will never be made public. And any file related to the case that's made public, I doubt it's actually going to change anything. So if you guys want to actually look for people that's on Jeffrey Epstein's list, I think a good place to start is, by looking at everybody that was invited to Jeff Bezos' wedding. I think quite a few of the guests there are quite suspicious. The reason why last fall I believe that the Trump administration could bring us a world peace was because, I think the number one concern for every single citizen worldwide, it doesn't matter where your ethnic background is, doesn't matter where your religion is, doesn't matter which part of the world you live in. So the biggest threat to humanity's existence is a total nuclear war. And to the people out there who are saying that, oh, that's just fear-mongering. Well, it's already almost happened twice. Way back in 1962, the world was saved by Vice Admiral Vasily Arkhipov, and it almost happened again in 1983, and it was Stanislav Petrov who saved the world. We don't need a chapter 3 of the crisis. I think at this point, everybody knows who blew up the Nord Stream pipelines. The Trump administration, they have not done anything to bring us closer to world peace. For example, there's so much anti-China propaganda. There's so much hate towards China. And I think there's a very, very dark agenda behind all of this because 80 to 90% of the stuff the Western media is pumping out is 100% garbage. It's complete nonsense. So, one of the prominent figures of the MAGA movement is Charlie Kirk. So some of these points I agree with, but some of these viewpoints are very questionable. They're extremely sus. For example, why is a guy like Charlie Kirk, why does he love Israel so much? It's also very interesting to notice. I would say every single Republican congressman, they are absolutely in love with Israel. And let me make something clear. I have nothing against Israel. I believe Israel has the right to defend itself. However, the United States should not be this close to Israel. It should not be giving Israel $3.3 billion a year. That is over $9 million a day. So whatever happens between Israel and Iran or Afghanistan or Syria or Libya or Lebanon, the United States should have nothing to do with it. Every single foreign conflict the United States has been involved in has been a total disaster. Look at the never-ending wars in the Middle East. Over 50 million deaths by now. And all of this hate towards China, all of this insane tariffs, nothing good will ever come out of this. China has existed for over 5,000 years. For the vast majority of the time period, there was no United States. So whether if the United States wants to continue their relations with China or not, I don't think it matters that much. China will still continue to exist. And also, for example, how come there's no hatred and there's no propaganda, let's say against the country like India or Pakistan or Bangladesh or Congo DR or Nigeria or Egypt? How come there's so much hostility? How come there's so much hatred towards China? I think that agenda by the United States is very questionable. And I've said this before in previous videos. If you guys actually want world peace, why can't China join NATO? You guys might think that's crazy. Oh, China is the enemy, right? Why does China have to be the enemy? If China actually joined NATO, then there would be world peace. It's actually that simple. So why can't the Trump administration actually make that happen? Well, honestly, at this point, I think it's because the Western countries led by the United States, they actually don't want world peace. They want to cause more chaos. They want to cause more division. They want to cause more conflict and more hatred. So we all turn against each other. I have completely lost faith in our government. And not just any political party. I think it doesn't matter who you vote for. It doesn't matter if you're leaning left or if you're leaning right. So the end goal is the same. For example, in the UK, if you guys have seen the most recent polls, the vast majority of the citizens of UK, they're 100% against the immigration. Certainly not at this level of immigration. The UK is taking in 1.2 million people a year now, both legally and illegally combined. Yeah, if you look at the recent polls, 85% of the citizens of the UK, they're against mass immigration. They want the net immigration number to be reduced to less than 100,000 people a year versus over 1 million people a year. And also over 50% of the citizens of the UK, they stated that they want zero immigration. They don't want any immigrants or refugees at all. But look at what's happened in the recent years. And there's nothing racist, there's nothing controversial about any of this. The McDonald's I used to work at while I was in high school, when I was there, it was 90% white people. Now, less than 20 years later, it's 90% Indians. And you wonder why the housing market has gotten so bad. You wonder why young people can't find jobs. You wonder why inflation has gotten so bad. But none of the Western governments seem to care. They just want to keep bringing in millions of people a year until all Western countries are 100% destroyed from inside out. And to all of you guys out there who are 100% anti-China, you say, oh, China is bad, the government is bad, the religion is bad, the people, culture, they're all bad. Well, it doesn't matter what you say, but the Chinese government will never, ever open up their borders to millions of foreigners from third world countries. Because if you import the third world, you will become the third world. The Chinese government does care about their people, and they want to keep the country 100% homogenous. They want to preserve their culture. They want to preserve their customs. They want to preserve their national identity. Look at what all of these Western countries are doing. It's 100% insanity. I'm not going to dive too deep into this Jeffrey Epstein case once again. Also, if I say too much, I might get myself into a lot of trouble as well. So I'll share one little story I think the vast majority of you has never heard of before. So Tony Blair. Yeah, almost everybody knows Tony Blair. So came to power in 1997, completely destroyed the UK. He opened up the floodgates. He let in millions of refugees and immigrants into the UK, slowly turning it into a third world country. It's also something very important. So prior to the United States' invasion of Iraq in March of 2003, Tony Blair, he met personally twice with this man, David Kelly. So David Kelly, he worked as a United Nations weapons inspector. He was in Iraq 36 times in order to inspect Iraq's military equipment. And he personally confirmed to Tony Blair twice that Saddam Hussein is not building any nuclear weapons. He has no weapons of mass destruction. So Tony Blair is like, oh, are you sure Saddam Hussein has no nuclear weapons? You have to remember, it wasn't just the US that sent troops to Iraq. UK was also allies with the United States. They also sent troops to the Middle East as well. So after David Kelly and Tony Blair's second meeting right before the invasion of Iraq, Tony Blair's like, okay, so if you say so, right, Saddam Hussein has no nuclear weapons. Anyways, so we're going to invade Iraq and topple the Saddam Hussein regime. So after the invasion of Iraq, David Kelly, he was sent by the United Nations to come back to Iraq in order to, search for any evidence that there could be weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And he lands in Kuwait. His visa gets rejected. Then in July of 2003, he testifies in front of the United Nations. And he's supposed to come back to Iraq for the 37th time. However, just 2 days before his flight, he mysteriously commits suicide. So they found his dead body 2 miles away from his house, hanging by a tree. And near his body was his personal knife. Now, even the coroners who examined his dead body, they said that there was actually no cuts to his body, and they couldn't find his fingerprints on his knife at all, and there was no blood anywhere. Now, obviously, this guy's a United Nations weapons inspector. So this made the national headlines. Then Tony Blair says, oh, this is such a big deal. This is such a tragedy. I will form the Hutton Committee in order to investigate his suicide. Then very quickly, the case gets brushed aside. Hutton concludes that, oh yeah, it's very, very unfortunate. So this guy, David Kelly, he's just very, very stressed out about this whole situation. So unfortunately, he has a severe depression and he killed himself using his own personal knife. And that's the end of the story. And his case ended right there. So, to all of you guys who are saying that, oh, China is bad, or if you're saying, oh, India is bad, or Japan is bad, look at what these Western leaders are doing. Endless wars in the Middle East, 53 million deaths, endless regime changes. And it's the everyday civilians that's suffering from all of this. And prior to Trump, look at what the Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and the Hillary Clinton administration, look at what they did. If you're wondering which US president in history has authorized the most military strikes on the Middle East in a single calendar year, well, it's President Barack Obama. And of course, you have to include his vice president, Joe Biden, and also the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. Just search up Operation Timber Sycamore. Once again, Operation Timber Sycamore. And of course, that is the operation that led to the invasion of Syria. 100% senseless bloodbath. And this would ultimately lead to the crisis of millions of refugees flooding into Europe, causing a massive humanitarian disaster, not just in the Middle East, but in Western nations as well. I honestly believed in the Trump administration this January 20th that Trump was going to be the one who's actually going to end all of these forever wars. He's going to end all of this bloodbath, and he's going to bring us a world peace. But the fact that now he's saying that this whole Jeffrey Epstein list, it's all a conspiracy, that he actually committed suicide. I have 100% lost all faith in the Western governments. And honestly, to the people who are still living in the West, if you actually have the option to leave, I think it's time to sell your house, sell your car, pack up your bags, and move to a different part of the world. Because I do genuinely believe that the governments simply don't care about you anymore. Thank you guys so much for watching and staying all the way until the end. The topic of immigration will be continued for the next video.